Hello, my name is Lauren Ludlow. I am a licensed therapist, a mindset and accountability coach, and a corporate consultant focusing on empathy and emotionally intelligent management. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about somatic therapy. Sort of what is somatic therapy, but more so why somatic therapy? What makes it such a powerful way of working through a healing journey? So, to start off, I want you to think of something that has the ability to calm you down, even when your wisdom, affirmations, and good thoughts seem to not be working. When thinking your way through isn't working, when the to-do lists aren't working, when you just need something that you know is going to help you relax or calm down. What is that thing for you? For me, it is a firm and compassionate hand on my shoulder from someone that I love or care about, or who I know cares about me. Ever since I was young, that's been something that's really helped me to be able to calm down or find my center when I'm feeling overwhelmed, anxious, all of those sorts of things. But maybe for you, it's a warm shower, or it is a hot mug of tea, or a walk, or a stretch, or painting. But if you're like a lot of people, if you're like most people, it probably involves some physical element. And what I mean by that is it involves maybe physical contact, maybe it's something like a hug, or it involves movement, like that stretching or walking, or it involves a sensation, like the feeling of that warm shower, or being able to step into the sun and experience the light. Or maybe if you're painting, the feeling of the paintbrush touching the canvas, or even the movement involved with that. And like a lot of people who are in the world of therapy, I was trained in modes of therapy that really taught me to focus just on thoughts and emotions. Thoughts and emotions come first. Thoughts and emotions are what we're trying to work with. And anything involving the body and the nervous system was sort of an afterthought. Yes, maybe throw in a breathing technique. Yes, maybe talk a little bit about the nervous system. But really, what we're wanting to focus on is thoughts, or really, what we're wanting to focus on is emotions. And focusing on thoughts and emotions can be very powerful, but trying to transform or make space for thoughts and feelings that are challenging, or to create space for new, more adaptive thoughts and feelings to emerge without addressing the needs of the body and the nervous system first, is like trying to roll a big rock up a hill with both hands tied behind our backs. We're not using all of the tools that are available to us. And in addition, we're creating a lot of resistance. When we go right for thoughts and emotions and we ignore the body, or we kind of push the body's needs to the side, we really are kind of fighting against our body and our nervous system oftentimes. And the body and nervous system are powerful. So, this is largely because of the way that our brains are wired. Our brains are wired so that in many ways, our body leads the way. On a very basic level, if we use kind of the hand model of the brain, our brain can be thought of as having three separate but very intertwined parts. There is the thinking brain, which is your frontal cortex, your frontal lobe. There's the feeling brain, and then there's the survival brain down at the brainstem. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about each of these. The thinking brain, that's this frontal lobe part and prefrontal cortex. It's that part of the brain that's not fully developed until we're 25 years old. It's really responsible for a lot of our very logical and rational thinking, and it moves relatively slow. It moves quickly, kind of in the grand scheme of things, but compared to other parts of the brain, it moves relatively slow because it's taking in so much input and really taking time to sort through it and all of these sorts of things, and that just simply takes time. Then we have our emotional brain. This part of our brain really involves our limbic system, our hypothalamus, hippocampus, and amygdala. And this part of the brain is all feelings, feelings, feelings. And it moves relatively quickly. And then below that, we have our brainstem, or we can think of this as our survival brain. And our survival brain is responsible for a lot of our automatic processes like breathing, digestion, reflexes, things that we don't have to think too hard about in order to do them. And this part of our brain really focuses a lot on sensations. This is the part of our brain that's responsible for, like when we touch a hot pan, we move our hand away without even thinking about it. And this part of the brain, the survival brain, is quick. Think about how quickly your reflexes move when you need them to. Or, how you can just think about, okay, I'm running and my breathing needs to increase, and how that happens without you having to maybe think about it too hard. This part of the brain moves fast. So, with all three parts of the brain involved, let's think about an example where maybe you get a text from a friend, and this text from your friend says, "Hey, can we do a phone call later?" Question mark. I need to tell you something, period. No exclamation points, no emojis, nothing to communicate that it's exciting news. Let's think about what happens with these three parts of the brain. So you get that text, and before your thinking or your rational brain even has the chance to interpret the text message, really consider all of the information, like who your friend is and what your relationship is like with that friend, your feeling and your survival brain already have taken that text message and that information and really run with it. Your survival brain has started interpreting whether there is some sort of threat or danger in this message or not, and started preparing you accordingly. So maybe your survival brain has already said, uh-oh, this doesn't seem like an exciting message, danger, 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 and your heart rate starts elevating, your breathing starts getting a little bit more quick and shallow, your muscles start to tense up because your survival brain wants you to be ready to respond to anything in any way you need to, whether that's running, whether it's freezing up and disappearing, whether that's getting ready to be aggressive and fight your way out of something, even if it's not that sort of threat. Your emotional brain is taking that feedback from the body and from the survival brain and translating it maybe into anxiety, overwhelm, or kind of a detached shutdown mode. And then your thinking brain is arriving to the party, and that party has already started. As once it begins to interpret that text, it now has all this other information to interpret along with it. It has the anxiety that's coming from the emotional brain. It has that feedback from the body and the survival brain that is saying danger, danger. And so by the time that your thinking and rational brain really gets involved in things, it's maybe having to think through, oh my goodness, this text happened, my heart is racing, I'm feeling anxious. What terrible thing could this text message mean? At this point, just trying to think good thoughts without giving the body and the nervous system and the survival mind what they need. It's not just working backwards, but it's putting a lot of unkind pressure on ourselves. Oftentimes we think, I should be able to problem solve or think my way through this. It's silly for me to be anxious or sad or really kind of knocked out of my zone of resilience by this sort of thing. But the reality is, your nervous system is doing what it believes that it needs to do to keep you alive, protected, and well. Even when it's doing it in these unpleasant ways, it's really trying its best to keep you alive, protected, and well. Sometimes our nervous system's response to something is a little bit less intense, and we do have space for just thinking our way through it. Some affirmations, some kind words to ourselves, some really connecting with our wisdom can be enough. But oftentimes it's really important to, instead of starting with thoughts and problem solving and thinking our ways through it, to start with the experience that our body is having, to pay attention to the tension that is shown up, to pay attention to the different things that our nervous system is going through, and to find ways to soothe, to regulate, and to meet the needs of our body and our nervous system first before going into problem solving mode, before going into thinking mode, before kind of going into any of those directions. Now, this nervous system response, the extent to which our nervous system is ready to go into full protection or full survival mode, can be impacted by so many things. It can be impacted by whether we've experienced trauma in our lives. It can be impacted by our natural body chemistry. It can be impacted by our environment. Are we living in an environment where we're always kind of on the edge of anxiety, overwhelm, panic, or shutting down? It can have to do with examples of how we saw people's nervous systems operating when we were growing up. So many things can factor into this. But in my next video, I'll talk a little bit more about how somatic therapy addresses these experiences of the nervous system. But I hope, if nothing else, this gives you a more compassionate lens through which to see your nervous system, how hard your nervous system works to protect you, how hard your survival brain and your emotional brain work to protect you, and how that can create distress that it can be really hard for your rational and logical brain to tackle until we meet the needs of the nervous system.